Hey guys, it's Airhead here. a little different from Mr. Cole over here. Uh, hey, Cole asked me to do an intro for this podcast because I guess he got tired of it. No one did intros, but I also am not gonna lie. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm only doing this so A, we can add more seconds to our episode so we can get monetized, and B, so I can get fed tonight. Cause he said, "Hi, hey, it's good. I think I'm done. All right, to episode 4. Here we go. Relive."
Okay, so even though I didn't want that to happen, we had it happen.
You
anyway.
pointed at me.
Do you just want that to be your like trademark now?
Yeah.
Whenever you talk or
Yeah.
whenever you're on the pod, you just say "we live" at the beginning.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that was maybe one of the goofiest starts we could have had.
Nah, I think episode
explanation.
1 was worse, honestly.
Well, we don't got to bring up the past. Right? Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Perspective Podcast. Already, my English is failing.
Hey, that's
I
not
don't
bad,
know if
honestly.
anybody heard that.
You're just enunciating. That's it.
But trying hard to enunciate the title of the podcast. I feel like that's something I should have nailed by now. But welcome to episode 4 of the Perspective Podcast. There we go. That sounds a lot better. Keeping up with what I talked about last week, this week we're eased back a little bit. We came down from the serious message that we had from episode 3. So this week we have our second guest. This is Brandon. Brandon, say hello.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
Feel free to introduce yourself, but I guess that's the point of this podcast, so don't introduce yourself, actually.
Well, I can introduce Brandon if you want me to, real quick.
You know what, go for it.
So this is Brandon. I've known him for a long time. I've known this homie since I was, I'd say like 9, right, Brandon? When I was like 9.
It's been a long time.
It was a
yeah,
long
it's been
time.
Forever.
So like how we met is that we both grew up doing martial arts, or specifically Taekwondo. So like I feel old because like we both don't do it anymore, just because obviously we're old. But I've known him for like literally all my life. At least I feel like I've known him for all my life. And homeboy has been there for everything. Has been there when I first got drunk at 21. A lot of times.
Oh, man.
Let's keep that story out.
Oh, man.
Yeah, he's been there for everything. So we've had a lot of late night talks.
Wait, is that true?
What?
When you
Yeah.
turned 21, y'all got together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
No.
No?
Brandon,
No.
you weren't here for my 21st.
You're right.
So then why would you bring... Okay, whatever. I'm
I
just
was
gonna-
joking.
No,
Well,
I know-
here we are.
I got it.
Okay, you're slow.
No, I'm not. I got it. I'm just saying. All right, whatever.
But yeah, Brandon's been there for a while, and I've known him for a lot of my life. We both grew up in Raleigh, so now he's in DC. So if he sounds like he's not here and talking through a phone, he is. So
I guess that's the other thing that I should mention. This, not only is it our second guest, but it's a bit of an experiment because this is our first remote call. Because like Thomas just so eloquently put it, Brandon is not here. Brandon's in DC right now, and we're in
Yep.
the Carolinas. So this is a little bit of an experiment. Hopefully we'll be able to hear you clearly when we play this back, because that would suck if we got a bunch of audio for you.
Nothing.
it sounds good so far, what we're hearing
That's
right now.
good.
But before we start like the real episode, tell us why you're in DC right now.
So I got my master's from Georgetown. I graduated in December. I got a master's in math and statistics. And while I was doing that, I was teaching 9th grade math. And
Okay.
now I have switched jobs. I am at a nonprofit that accredits different schools around the country.
Dang. Okay, Brandon. Let me tell you this real quick, and it's just kind of funny. Before we started this podcast and before we got on the phone call with you, Cole was asking me like what your major was and like what you did in high school, not in high school, college, and like your undergrad and grad. I told him that you did like statistics and analytics, and you also double majored in Spanish. And Cole was completely convinced that you did law.
I don't know where I got that from, but I feel like at
No.
some point we had a conversation.
My brother and my dad and my sister all did law.
Well, I knew that you
that
were
makes
doing.
sense.
Speaking about it now, it sounds really stupid, but
That's too much reading.
Well,
Too
no,
much
I knew
reading for
that
me.
you were doing a bunch of math stuff, because when we would play video games and stuff like that, you would talk about all the math assignments that you were doing.
Yeah,
but
all the coding that took forever.
I don't know where I got law from. I swear, like, at some point we had talked about you doing law or something with law, but clearly that's not the case. I don't know where I got that from. But
I mean, I don't really blame you. Brandon is a smart cookie, not gonna lie. So
yeah, I was gonna say if you hadn't picked up
I
from.
appreciate that.
Yeah, if you hadn't picked up from the conversation that we had, Brandon's a very smart guy. So
yeah, homeboy finished college, both grad and undergrad, within like 5 years in total, right? I'm guessing. It wasn't 6 years, right? It was 5 years.
5.5.
5.5. Most people graduate like 6, close to 7 years with both undergrad and grad. Yeah, and he had like wasn't it a one? Was it 2/3 of a scholarship at Wake Forest?
Yeah, most of my tuition at Wake was covered.
See, like homeboy is smart, and then we got Ethan over here on his 6th college.
oh, Ethan
sixth
just got
university.
astray. We don't got to bring up Ethan right now.
Homeboy is struggling.
Maybe at some
No,
point
he's
he'll.
living it up out in Hawaii though.
He's in Hawaii?
Yeah, yeah, I told
Yeah.
you that.
You did?
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't pay attention to when you guys talk to me about stuff.
One in.
Brandon's out in DC studying law. Ethan's in Hawaii, probably, I don't know, like studying volcanoes or something. I
Nah,
don't know.
he's studying how to fix bikes on his 3rd broken bike.
How to fix bikes in Hawaii?
He's not studying that. He bought like. Did I ever tell you he bought like 2 motorcycles?
I knew about the first one, but I didn't know
He
about...
sold the first one and then bought a second one that was broken and tried to fix it again.
That's
He
the
bought a
most
second
equal...
one that was broken.
Yeah, he bought a second one and it was broken.
That sounds like him.
Yeah.
I was about to say, that's the most like Ethan sequence of events you could possibly hear. Anyway, aside from Ethan.
Yeah, so I guess we can like start getting into it. So for once in my life, I'm actually not kind of blind in this podcast today. Usually I am. I don't know what's going on, but this time, Brandon, you're the blind
I
one
have
here.
no idea what's going on.
It's not
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's not like a deep topic or anything like the 3rd episode. I don't know if you've listened to third one yet or not, but
Yeah, I've listened to it.
oh well. See, Brandon, you're one of our loyal.
That's why you're on this one.
Loyal
The faithful,
listeners.
yeah.
But this episode is going to revolve around the idea of responsibility.
Okay.
But we have some topics that we would like to ask you and like hear what you have on like your perspective on it. But it's going to be revolving around the idea of responsibility, because I know
Alright.
since I've known you for like most of my life, I feel like you've grown up to be a very like responsible person. Like even in our friend group with me, Ethan, Andrew, and you usually was like the responsible one out of all of us.
That's weird to hear.
What do you mean? You know that. It's true. Like besides
I don't know.
besides whenever like we go out and like you're drinking a lot, since because you're like the oldest one out of all of us. Usually sometimes that would be like Brandon, but like you're usually the responsible one between like me, Ethan, and Andrew. Like you would always be telling me and Ethan like, hey, don't do that, and I'm like, why not?
I mean, I also feel like too. This just popped in my head, and I really want to say it. But like saying that, not that you're not smart, Brandon, because you're incredibly smart. But saying that Brandon's the smartest out of your group is saying like he's the bluest crayon in a pack of red crayons. Because like the rest of you guys just kind of like, So
I mean, you're not wrong though, because me and Ethan are like, and then Brandon.
I don't know Andrew, so I can't speak on that.
Andrew's cool. I mean,
Andrew's got his master's too, I think.
Okay, so
So
it's just you
it's
and
just
Ethan,
me
the red
then.
crayons. Okay, never mind.
well, but Andrew's older than me. No, I think Andrew. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Andrew's older than you.
Yeah, I know Andrew's older than me, but I thought he just went into like his grad school.
Yeah, he just finished not too long ago.
Oh, he finished grad school? Oh shit,
Yeah.
I don't know that. My fault.
Whoops.
I didn't know that. But yeah, so the first topic that we kind of want to talk about, it still revolves around like responsibility. But the one thing that we wanted to hear from you, and like I'm gonna help you like talk about this too, was like responsibility when we did Taekwondo growing up. So I guess to like set up a scenario, me and Brandon started Taekwondo way before me, so he was like already ahead in like a couple belts than I was. But we kind of just grew closer together because we both were on like the same team at one point. If not at one point, like after we joined the team for a long time. Yeah, for a long time. But we were on the same team and like we just got better. I was like super addicted to Taekwondo for the longest time, to the point where I would spend like 8-9 hours a day there. So Brandon would see me all the time because I was
I'm not gonna lie. You're probably a reason I was there as much as I was. I
Really?
wouldn't have been there. hanging out as much. Yeah.
This is so
You and Ethan?
cute, dude. Just being here and listening to you guys talk about this stuff. This is so adorable. Got me blushing. I wasn't even there with you guys.
That's well. I
No,
actually
it's true
didn't.
though. I wouldn't have been as motivated to learn some of the things that I did.
Well, Brandon was just intimidated by my skills, so that's why he tried to get better.
All right, let's ease it back.
Okay,
there.
anyways.
That's a little bit too
Me and
far.
Brandon both are like.
No, but I was like addicted there for a long time, and I was there, and I saw Brandon a lot. And Brandon, funny enough, I actually like never knew your age growing up for the longest time. I
Really?
always thought you were like either the same age or like slightly older than me, because like once again, this goes into like responsibility. You seem like very mature whenever you were like younger and like you were growing up, because you always just like seem very. You always had like good mannerisms. Like you always seem very professional. In a lot of cases, like talking to parents, talking to even like me and Ethan sometimes, like you just seem like very professional, very, I wouldn't say serious, but like straight to the point type person, where it just
Yeah.
seemed very, I guess, responsible. So my thing is like, even though like we had like responsibilities, like especially when we were like teaching and stuff like that, did you like feel any other like responsibilities or like have that sense of responsibility in Taekwondo whenever we did it?
I don't know. I feel like because I was the oldest, I felt like I did have a lot of responsibility. I felt like I could tell that people looked up to me, and I felt like I had to present myself a type of way sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this, because it's actually funny. So even though you're the oldest out of like a lot of people in like Taekwondo, especially like me, Ethan, and Andrew, you're the youngest child. So like, how did you have?
That's wild.
That's what I'm saying. So like, how did you have that like sense of responsibility being the youngest
That's
child?
wild. I hadn't thought about that actually. I think a lot of it is like seeing what my brother and my sister, my brothers and my sister, what they had to deal with growing up. And one of the things my parents would always say is learn from their mistakes. And so I would always pay attention to what was going on and the things that they were getting in trouble for, or you know what I mean? I don't know. It was a lot of like paying attention to what was in front of me and following that example and like learning from their mistakes.
So two things. First, it's an interesting viewpoint when you look at it like that, because I'm the second youngest, so you can see, I don't want to say the mistakes of your siblings in front of you, but you can see kind of stuff that they learned and it gets passed on to you. And in this situation, you're the older amongst the group of, I guess, your friends that were also taking Taekwondo with you. So in a way, you kind of stepped into this leadership position just based off of your prior experience, which I think is pretty cool. The other thing that I noticed, and nobody can see, I smiled at Thomas because as soon as he asked you that question, I was like, man, I'm so proud of you, because you're kind of making up for episode 3, because I joke with you about episode 3 where Thomas there were points where he was just kind of like, he didn't know what he was talking about. He's already making connections. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
So before we continue, I just got to make a preference, okay? The reason why episode number 3, I felt like, or sounded like I was and I didn't know what the heck I was talking about, it was because we were recording it in my room and out in bed. So like I was laying down the whole episode and like looking at Cole, and like it was late at night. Wasn't it like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night?
I think, we find ourselves recording these episodes at like obscene times.
Yeah, so like usually it's
Sure.
fine to me, but the only problem is I was in bed, so like my brain was like focused, but it was like not dazing, but like I just couldn't keep my train of thought half the time.
I mean, I think I did see you rub your eyes a couple of times, so you're
Yeah.
definitely
Half
getting pretty
sleep.
comfortable.
You're
Yeah.
definitely like half sleep.
Yeah, so like here we're recording in the living room now, where like we usually record podcasts, where like I'm on the couch and like I'm comfortable, but I'm awake. So it's also early in the day. It's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock now.
Yeah, we're 6 hours ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
So.
which is good because we can do this. But anyways, yes, continuing with it.
I had something else too.
Go ahead.
That I can say. I don't know if you guys were mid subject about the question that you just
No,
asked.
go ahead.
I think something that we should toss in there too, because before we started this, I asked you this question. Obviously, I don't know this about Brandon, because also, I guess we didn't mention Brandon. I met Brandon through you, Thomas.
Yes, I forgot to mention.
I
it.
haven't
Right.
known you as long. How long have we known each other, Brandon? Was it like 2 years now, 3 years now that we've like actually talked to each other? Because I knew
Yeah,
of
that
your
sounds about
existence.
That
Yeah.
sounds about right.
I think y'all first met when we had like the New Year's party
It was
when we
New
first moved
Year's,
in
yeah.
here. Yeah, so I think that was the first time y'all ever met.
That was the first time we met each
Yeah,
other.
and
Yeah.
I think no, it wasn't because like there was times where we would be in Raleigh and like we went
That
out
was
to
the
eat.
first time we'd like really hung out. Though,
Yeah, the
was New
first time y'all ever
Year's.
hung out was New Year's, but then y'all like met each other whenever me and Brandon was in town. Like me and you were in town in Raleigh, and Brandon was still living there, and I would just get lunch with him or dinner.
A vivid memory from the night of New Year's was Brandon, for the first time, I didn't know this existed, ordering that big double burger cheddar style.
Oh my god!
yeah.
Because
Check
I don't know if I got anything or not, but I looked at your tray. I was like, "Bro, what is that?" And you were like, "That's the cheddar style burger, bro. Let me put you onto it." So the next time I went, I got it, and I was hooked for like months.
Bro, no, it wasn't
I
even
remember
months.
that.
He was on that for like maybe a year.
Okay, well, I'm trying to
It was
trying
like
to
every
make it
time we
sound
got
like
on the
I'm.
game, every time we got on Call of Duty, you were talking about going to get one.
Okay,
after.
thanks, guys. I was really trying to make it seem like I'm not that fat, but I guess we got that on.
But the thing is, just the skinniest one out of me and Brandon.
That's true.
yeah, my metabolism, man. Shout out my metabolism.
Must be nice.
Anyway, getting back to what I was saying originally.
Yeah.
I haven't known Brandon as long, but one thing that I don't know, I might somewhat know it from Thomas. If he's told me, I don't remember. I definitely don't know this about you, Brandon. But what got you guys into doing Taekwondo in the first place? Because I know that you both did it for a really long time, but I don't know kind of what the genesis of that relationship that you had with
Yeah.
the sport was.
So I think mine is kind of a cool story, actually.
Mine is not, but yeah.
So, when I was in middle school, my grandmother was always like super paranoid that I was gonna get bullied, and maybe not super paranoid. I'm exaggerating, but she thought I was gonna get bullied just because I'm like not the biggest. Like I'm short. Like I'm not very tall, and she thought people were gonna pick on me because of my height. And so for that reason, she was like, "No, I want him to be able to defend himself." And my mom was like, she was like pushing my mom to put me in my martial arts, and my mom didn't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was hanging out with one of my friends, and we went and saw his neighbors test for their black belts. And after that, I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it. I want to try it." So I went and told my mom I wanted to try it, and lo and behold, like luckily there was a spot right up. There was a Taekwondo school right up the street that was opening up, and so the day that they opened, me and my mom went up and I did a trial class, and after that I was kind of hooked on it. So it was just a lot of fun.
You know what's funny? I actually didn't know that. Like, I knew Brandon started Taekwondo, but I didn't know, like, I knew because he's been there since the beginning, like, since they opened up. But I had no idea that was the reason
I was
why
the
you
first
got
person from. I was like the first person from that school to like all the way through go get black
Yeah.
belt.
And, like, I never knew that.
That's really interesting, actually. I definitely don't know about that, but that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really Brandon. I didn't know that actually. What the heck?
Yeah.
And I've known you for years. Okay. Anyways, well, how I got into martial arts was like a completely different reason than like what Brandon was. So, growing up, my mom and my family owns like a nail salon, pretty close to like where the martial arts school, like close to where Brandon lives, and after school. A lot of the times because like I was very young, I was to the point where I was like 9, 8 o'clock, not 8 o'clock, 9, 8 years old that I couldn't stay home by myself.
How old are you, man? 8 o'clock.
I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I wasn't allowed to like stay home by myself because I don't know what's like the legal whatever. Stop laughing.
Stop laughing at that.
What-
Oh my
what-
goodness, that was about 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe.
But what's the legal age that you can like legally stay home by yourself? Isn't it like
don't know.
13, 12? I'm pretty sure.
No idea.
Is there a legal age?
Is there an
like
age?
I'm pretty sure there's like a legal age that you can like stay home by
I
yourself.
feel like 13 sounds right.
yeah, like
I
either
could be
it's like
completely
12
wrong.
or 13 that you can like quote unquote legally stay at home. Like the reason why they say that is because like let's say you're home by yourself at like the age of 6 and like a police officer comes
Yeah,
in
it's
and
like
check.
some child abandonment
Exactly.
stuff or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there's a legal age. I think my family. I didn't know.
Virginia
This.
doesn't have a legal age.
Of course you would know that, Brandon. For some reason.
I just looked it up.
Oh, I was about to say.
I don't know about North Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know about North Carolina, but I think there was one, and like my parents just wasn't allowed to keep me home, so they would bring me to like their shop, and I would just like be there all day, during the summer, after school, whatever. And like it was like good and bad. It was good because I interacted with like their customers, and like I was this little chubby fat Asian kid that people enjoyed talking to, and like getting to know me because apparently I was an interesting character when I was younger.
You were pretty
Um,
goofy.
Thanks, Brandon. I appreciate it.
In a
Um,
good way.
but it got to the point where like I would just like start messing with like people's stuff, not like customer stuff, like like my mom's coworkers. So I would like move their stuff around or do whatever. So I was like slowly becoming a nuisance. So then my mom wanted me to like get into some sort of after school program or like some summer camp, specifically one that helped me lose weight, because my whole life my mom has always told me like, yo, like you're kind of chubby, you kind of need to lose weight.
To put it softly, I feel like it could be a lot worse, but you're definitely softening the blow.
Yeah, I'm definitely
Your mom kind of a
softening the blow.
savage, so
Bro,
I'm
my
sure.
mom has told me some savage, like this past weekend. Oh, I'm not even gonna get into that. Anyways, but yeah, my mom has told me like, you kind of need to lose some weight, because all I did was, I mean, I didn't really do much, honestly, when I was younger. So, my mom not found, but like one of my mom's customers, because my mom always believes my customers, I guess, word. So like one of my mom's customers recommended like a taekwondo school up the road from here, and she was like telling him that like they have summer camp programs and after school programs where they keep the kid all day and don't got to worry about them until like 3 or 4 o'clock. But I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but like the reason why I was always there like super late is because my mom would never pick me up on time. So like what, especially like after school programs usually
Yeah.
ends until like 4 or 5 o'clock, especially at like MCMA.
Right.
My mom would pick me up like 7, maybe like 9 o'clock sometimes, between seven
No,
to
I know,
nine.
because I would always end up staying after and hanging out, and kicking
Yeah,
around a little bit.
I didn't have an option to like leave earlier. It was always like between then, because like my family gets out of work around like 7, 8, 9 o'clock around then. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of like how I got into it. They like put me into the summer camp program originally, and then what was it? During the summer camp programs, they had like taekwondo class. I wasn't there for taekwondo. I was there for like the summer camp programs, and then like Master J Cam, when he was still there, he was like leading the summer camp class like in the mornings. So then they gave me like a uniform and like helped me try it on and everything, and like I got like hooked onto that first class. And yeah, from then on it was really fun. I think, well, Brandon wasn't a part of the after school and summer camp programs. So I didn't really see him until like as I started getting to like higher belt levels. So that's because like, because I think you were what, like a green belt, blue belt at that point when I joined, I think, Brandon,
I think that sounds right.
something like that. Because
Something like that.
you and Ethan were very ahead of me. I remember that because Ethan was
Yeah.
actually going to test with you for his black belt, but he decided to wait to test with me.
Yep.
So
I
yeah,
remember that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
told me
I
about
remember
that.
that.
yeah, because you got your first degree when
That was
Brand.
when his foot got messed up. That was when he. That was the year Ethan's foot got messed
His
up.
dad ran over his foot?
His
Was that the
dad ran
story?
over his ankle, not his foot.
Oh,
That
that's
was
right. Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
funny to me. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
But yeah, that's the story of
But,
like how we
yeah.
both got into it. But I guess going back to, I guess like the idea of responsibility. Let me ask you this, Brandon. It's kind of like very similar, but going back to like the same topic. What do you think gave you this sense of like responsibility, even though? Oh, I guess let me rephrase it. So like growing up as the youngest child, what kind of gave you that idea of responsibility? Like even though like you just said like you learned the mistakes from like your older siblings, but like there's also a portion of people's lives that like kind of want to be reckless. What made you like not want to be reckless as like a younger child, like the youngest especially too?
I think the consequences, the immediate consequences of being at home and being scolded or something like that, or not being able to do the things that I wanted to do. I think that was what deterred me at that age. But I did have a reckless streak.
But that was when you were
So,
like, that was near like the end of high school, beginning of college. Like when
yeah.
when I first met you, like once again, you seem very like responsible to the point where like I didn't even think bad
I think
things
that's
was
because of
correlated to you.
a lot of that. I think is because of where I was.
I I guess that's true. I guess like we kind of both grew up in like a pretty positive environment. So because Taekwondo was a positive environment, honestly.
Well, that's one of the, obviously you guys can speak more to that than I can, but, well, yes and no, because I also, fun fact, you know this, but I took Taekwondo, but it was not you guys' Taekwondo. It's a very, very different.
Where did you go again? Do you remember?
Taekwondo of America. So if that tells you all you need to know, then there you go. But one of the main and fundamental principles of Taekwondo is kind of, because I know this for just martial arts in general. I don't think this is just a Taekwondo thing, but it's one of the main principles, like self-respect, discipline. They teach you, honestly, other than it just being an extracurricular activity and something, something for you to do, kind of to pass the time, or I guess originally what your parents wanted you to do. Is it also when I was a kid, I didn't realize it as much, really. Maybe looking at it now, it didn't teach me that much, but in terms of kind of like helping you grow and develop too, just kind of teaching you discipline, responsibility, being very at attention with things too. I feel like that's something that sometimes people don't really talk about too much when it comes to these martial arts.
Well, with martial arts, at least personally, I don't know about most people, but like I grew up with a family that was not first generation. I'm first generation American, so like a lot of my family, especially like my mom, my uncle, and them, don't know like American culture. So I didn't learn like any mannerisms or anything from them. Like I was always told like wait to speak like when someone else is done talking and stuff like that. But besides that, like I didn't know anything else. So I was taught a lot of my mannerisms from Taekwondo, especially like Master Yu, Master Jacob. Those two people were the ones that like taught me how to say like yes sir, yes ma'am, like all that stuff.
I think this might be,
and that's wild to me because Master Jacob isn't from over here.
But I mean,
Master
both
Yu's
of them.
first generation.
No,
isn't he?
Master Yu's born from Korea too.
I didn't know that.
He moved
I feel
here
like
when
I
he was.
forgot that.
Okay, I guess you haven't talked to him as much as I did. He moved here when he was 14 with his mom.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he started at White Tiger.
I knew he started at White Tiger. I didn't know that he. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
because I think too, the more that you talked about it, and this might be overstepping a little bit, obviously, because they're two very different things, but in certain ways, the more that we talk about it, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like the military. I feel like,
Yeah.
because it's very,
There's some of
there's aspects in it. I'm not saying that they're identical to each other, but there's a lot of like, because especially with uniforms and stuff like that, there was a certain way that you had to have it on. For me, when I entered the dojo, or I guess whatever we called it, you had to bow. There's a certain understanding of respect and
there's certain respect and discipline, and
I mean,
I would say those aspects are there.
yeah, I think it's similar. It is similar to the military.
it's definitely a stretch, but I think there's little micro culture stuff that
you're actually not like you're actually on the dot, because it is like very similar to the military, and let me explain why. So, fun fact, and I don't know if you know this, Brandon, but in Korea, like South Korea, whenever people enlist into the military, they're required to take Taekwondo and get their black belt to go into the military.
I did know that.
Yeah.
I think I did know
I did
that.
not know that.
So yeah, in Korea and South Korea, they have like their own like Taekwondo like demonstration team to demonstrate what they learned in Taekwondo and how it can be applied in military, which is like very interesting to watch, because it's very it's similar but different to like regular Taekwondo.
Well,
It's really cool.
I know too, the military. What's the? Is it Krav Maga? There's one like fighting style in some. I don't know if it's Krav Maga. What do you know? What I think it's the Israeli.
Oh, I have no idea.
Like self-defense.
I have no
I
idea.
know.
I don't know if it's Krav Maga. There's some form of martial art that's incorporated within one country, nation. I don't know. I'm not.
Probably country.
Yeah, it's incorporated into their military. I can't remember what it is, but I guess now thinking about it, that's where I'm drawing the comparisons a little bit.
Because like Korea has two, it's Taekwondo and Hapkido, which Hapkido is like the equivalent to Jiu-Jitsu, so like to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So they both learned those in the military too, like because they're both good fighting styles. Because Taekwondo teaches you how to be quick on your feet and like quick and light and fast. Hapkido teaches you hand-to-hand combat, like how to deal with someone if someone like is up close to you or like really far, or how to like defend yourself. which is why they have that in the military. So it's really interesting. Brandon, real quick, let me ask you this: what was your like experience? How would you rate when we did Taekwondo growing up?
When we did it growing up, I loved it, man. Like I couldn't get enough of it. Like
Honestly, I feel
I
that.
actively wanted to be there every day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. What? Well, let me ask you this because I can answer this after you, and you can ask this too if you
Hmm.
want. What died down for you? Like, what made it? Besides the fact that we got older and like our bodies couldn't really keep up with it as much anymore, but like, was there a certain point that you kind of like started realizing like this wasn't it anymore?
I mean, it just didn't feel right. I don't know. You just got your how do I want to word this? I guess your interest shift. Like, because then I started playing rugby. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
and once I started that, I was kind of hooked on that, and that's been like I'm still playing it now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess it's the
So,
same with me too. Yeah.
I think for me, obviously, I don't have as much to speak on it as you do,
Yeah.
but there was a point where, for the instruction that I was given, there was a point where I had to. It became a commitment, or at least that's what my parents told me, because there was a point where we had to buy the sparring gear, and my parents were like, "If we buy this for you, then this is going to be something that you do for a long time." And to me, at the
mhm.
time, I was like 10, maybe. I was pretty young. I was like, yeah, I don't know if this is something I want to, even as a kid, because that's funny. In the back of your mind, you think like, oh, yes, it's something I really like, I want to do.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I was like, no, this isn't really for me. It was fun, but I think too, something interesting, I don't know if you guys relate to this at all, but I think looking at it from an outside perspective, even though I did it for the little time that I did, from an outside perspective, you can maybe look at it as in Taekwondo at the time was kind of a really fun kid, quote unquote, kid thing to do. But then as you get older, people might look at it and be like, "You're doing Taekwondo?" Because, like, okay, if you're a 20-something-year-old and they're like, "Oh, I still do Taekwondo" or something, obviously there's nothing wrong with that because
Yeah.
people find comfort and peace in a lot of different things.
Mhm.
But I don't know. Like, did you experience that at all, where being something along the lines of, "Oh, when I get older, if I'm still doing this, that's gonna maybe not be a good image for me" or something?
See, I never really
No,
thought about it. Go ahead, Brandon.
I was gonna say you made me think like so. You made me think of like when I moved, right? I guess the big reason I kind of dropped out of it was because um I went to the Taekwondo club at the school at Wake Forest, and I just wasn't the same. Like like I would have
Yeah.
been teaching the things that I know and wouldn't have been able to improve
Yeah.
much myself. Just kind of how it felt. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I saw that there was no point in going, and after that, it was just the skills kind of went away with it because I stopped doing it.
Hmm.
So after that, I was like, "What's the point?" It didn't really feel.
It felt
I
like
didn't
almost
feel like it.
unnatural again.
Right. It didn't feel right going back, and
Yeah.
especially since I started another sport, it was really weird trying to train my body to switch back.
I think like I never really thought about the idea of like imagery when it came to like, oh, like if I was 30 years old, how did people react if I did Taekwondo? For me, it was like burnout. I had like hella bad burnout for Taekwondo
That's
because
because you did it so much,
I
though.
did it a lot. I did it way more than Brandon. But the thing is, I had burnout because it was to the point where I wasn't doing the same enjoyable things anymore. It was to the point where they were talking about like me becoming like head instructor for things where I'm teaching classes, which I love teaching classes, but when it came to like teaching all of the classes or leading demo team, like our demonstration team, I had like no problem with that, but it was to the point where like they would like literally drown me as a dog to like do this work when I was still in school. Like I was in community college doing this when they were like trying to get me through that.
I
When we were working there, I feel like there were a lot of times there we had a lot more responsibility than I think we
And we didn't
would
get paid enough
probably.
for it too. We
Right,
definitely didn't get paid
right.
enough
Then
for it.
yeah, I agree.
So
But
that was the
I don't
biggest
know. It
burnout.
was, yeah.
Like I don't know
I
about
can
you,
relate to the
Brandon.
burnout in that reason,
Yeah, it
in
just
that
wasn't
regard.
because it came to like a shift and change or like a shift of um responsibility. Like when we came to this, originally when we came to Taekwondo, we didn't have a responsibility but learn. Like that's the only thing we had to do. But then the responsibility eventually shifted where we actually were given real responsibilities to teach classes.
I think it's
to
I
teach
think it's
students.
funny that the responsibility came more with the skills that we learned than with like age. I guess age was kind of a factor in the skills that we were
Yeah,
learning,
yeah.
but as we learned more skills, they became to I
Give
think
us more
that's what pushed
responsibility.
yeah.
Because I don't know if you know, but I started teaching Taekwondo when I was 13.
Yeah, I
So
did know that. Yeah.
Yes, I did know.
and
that.
I wasn't legally like age enough to be like paid, but
But they still had
I
to do
remember
it.
that.
yeah. So I was like, and they only started asking me to do it is because A, they were short staffed, and B, Brandon,
Yep.
you're right. We had like the skills to teach it, so like they just thought, oh, like let's
Oh, he'll
like,
figure
Might
it
as well
out.
use you while we have you. Kind
yeah,
of thing,
yeah. So
Yep.
then it kind of just shifted into like, oh, they're good, they can teach it. So that's kind of what
That's
happened.
yeah. That's how I feel like happened with me too.
Well, that was one thing I was going to talk about.
But
I mean, you kind of hit it, Thomas. But going back to the whole thing of, I think, and you alluded to it too, Brandon. I think age probably definitely did have weight on this because too, even though Taekwondo taught you guys a lot of really good, what's the word I'm looking for? Not techniques, but like principles, I guess. I've already
Yeah.
used that word, but it
Yeah,
taught,
that's a good word.
It taught you a lot, but I think using some of those to go on to later steps in life is what helped you because
Mhm.
age was a thing because when we hit high school and you started doing cheerleading,
Mhm.
Taekwondo kind of got pushed aside a little bit, but you
Mhm.
used stuff that you learned from Taekwondo in cheer.
Yes.
And I guess maybe other than you doing it with Tegan, I think maybe it kind of ignited you to do cheer because you're like, all right, well, a lot of this deals with flips and stuff. I've already
Mhm.
been doing that in Taekwondo.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think age definitely played a part in it, but I think that also too, and Brandon, you can speak to this if you're able, but the stuff that you learn from Taekwondo, I think also in some regards helped you in later parts of your life, like the more you grew up.
I definitely agree. And Thomas, I've never said this, but I'm very proud of you for doing cheer. Actually,
Really? Why?
yeah, because it's like it's something you wanted to do, and me and Ethan used to give you like crap for it all the time.
Yeah, they
just
gave me a hard
because,
time.
Just because, like that's what we do.
Yeah.
But I'm really proud of you for doing it.
Thanks, Brandon. Well, okay, fun fact. When I told my masters and like all the people that taught me
They
Taekwondo,
gave you jokes for it
they
too.
gave me a
didn't
hard time with it because I was
No,
like, hey,
yeah, I know they did.
yeah, I was like, hey, I'm gonna do cheer, and then like the first thing was like, oh, now that we taught you flipping and you know how to flip, you're gonna go over to cheer now and stuff like that. And I'm sitting here like, I mean, yeah, I guess,
Yes.
but like at
I
the
mean,
same
yes.
time, it was just like they kind of wanted like I was in high school. I wanted to explore more things because I was kind of like I was tied down to Taekwondo for a long time, so I kind of wanted to
Yeah.
like explore some new stuff. At the same time, who wouldn't want to hang out with girls every day? So I'm joking. I'm joking.
What a
Besides the fact,
sleazeball.
I'm joking, but
Cringy. No, I'm
whatever.
kidding.
But yeah, so I kind of wanted to explore. I don't. You
Well, I was
something.
gonna say one of my favorite memories, because we talked about this, is because I saw it as soon as it happened. Was I don't remember who it was. You'll remember as soon as I start telling this story.
Okay.
But you posted on Instagram years ago when you were still doing cheer. I think.
I mean, still doing
It-
cheer now.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, when you were in your like peak of it, I guess in high school or like when it
Uh-huh.
first started,
Uh-huh.
you posted. You guys won some.
Oh my god!
You guys won some sort of tournament. It wasn't a.
Talking about Wake counties.
Maybe I don't remember what it was specifically, but
I remember the post.
you post a picture. Do you know where I'm going with it?
Yes, I know.
You post a picture
Yes.
of you and the team winning, and I don't remember which master it was, but they just commented, "Oh no!" ...
So-
and that killed me. And then you responded to it, and you said, "Sorry, sir," or something, and I was like, "What the heck?"
So that was Master U.
Oh, that's funny.
Because this is around the same time I got my braces. I don't know if you remember, but in the picture, I literally got braces like 2-3 weeks before competition, and my mouth was hurting so bad that I couldn't like smile correctly. So like in the picture, not only did I look like a geek and like didn't know how to smile in that, but it was just like awkward because I looked stupid. But Master U saw that and commented it on my picture. He said, "Oh no, ... And I just responded. I said, "Sorry, sir." Dot 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 dot.
But like the thing that killed me was
Master
not
E
only
is so
him,
funny.
Yeah.
not only him commenting on it, but you apologizing. Because what are you apologizing for? You're just posting how proud you were of the team, and he just said, "Oh no!" Like he
Well-
was just so
Oh, no.
disappointed in you. Yeah.
Well, like I said, a lot of them give me a hard time, like with just going to cheer, like doing a different sport. Because I'm not gonna lie, I think Master E and Master Jacob really thought I was gonna be like a diehard Taekwondo person, and like they really thought I was gonna go to like the schools and teach it for like. The
I think they
job.
knew that I wasn't. I think everybody knew that I wasn't.
I really genuinely think they did, like I was gonna do that, but I think the reason.
Oh, I did too. I think they did too. I think they thought Andrew was going to.
I don't know about Andrew, but I had no idea, honestly. But I think the reason why is because I was so dedicated, but it didn't help that like I got hella burned out at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right now, so that was like pretty good about Taekwondo. That I enjoyed that conversation, and honestly brought back some memories.
You guys learned a couple things about each
Brought
other.
back
too.
a lot of
That was
memories.
Not gonna lie, yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of didn't
Yeah.
know that about some things about Brandon, honestly. So, we're actually gonna shift some gears. I mean, it's still on the topic of responsibility, but I actually want to ask you.
yeah. Let's do the third one.
Okay. I guess we kind of like talked about it a little bit before at the beginning of the podcast, but I also want to ask you about number one, about like what school you went to, both grad school and undergrad school, and then talk about your major, Brandon. So let's start with undergrad.
Okay. All right. So undergrad, I went to Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem. My major, it's weird. I always describe it to people after I tell what my major was. It was called mathematical business. It's kind of like a joint thing. They had a joint program between our math department and the business school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like basic business classes. So I had things like finance and accounting and marketing and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a whole lot of statistics and like calculus 3. And so, it was kind of the best of both worlds. It was being able to see two things that I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And trying them both out.
Was there a
then
concentration in it? Like, did you have a concentration at all?
So I had a second major.
That's right.
My second major was Spanish, and I had a concentration in that in Spanish for business.
Okay.
See, as you were explaining that, I was shaking my head at Thomas because coming from a human being's mouth saying that they wanted to learn more about a subject that pertains to math made me cringe a little bit on the couch because I hate math and I know that you're really good at math.
I love
so
it, man. I love it.
it's the
Best
there's.
thing in the world. Numbers are the same in every language.
Yeah, that's actually true.
I mean, yeah, it's true. I just in every language I hate maths.
You know what's funny? In every language that we learn, Cole is, even though Cole hates math, he's in a major that requires a lot of math.
Correct.
What's your major, Cole?
Computer science. Yeah, that's
that's a
the
lot of
silence
math.
that came after that is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah,
so.
that's a lot of math.
Yeah. But anyways, what made you want to go into like, I guess mathematical business and concentration in Spanish?
So I'd always loved Spanish. You know what I've always
Yeah.
You've known I've always loved Spanish.
Him and
I don't know what
Spanish
it
is
is.
sad.
Like I guess it's just being able to communicate with different people. And I don't know.
Well,
Being
more,
able to-
it was
to
more like
connect with the different
mathematical
people.
business side. Like, what made you get into that? I know
Yeah.
you also love math a lot. Was that the only reason why you went into like that major?
Because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And talking to my brothers and my sister and just the rest of my family and not knowing what I wanted to do, my brother was like, well, try business, see how you like it. That's something that's always going to be useful. And I was like, well, yeah, but I think I like math all too much for that. And then stumbled across this major after I'd selected the school. And so it just kind of fell into place, honestly, for me.
Dang,
I
yeah, it
feel
really
like-
sounded like everything just got handed to you in that sense. I mean, it might have
It just kind of like,
that
I mean, I
process
put
might
in
have
the work
been
to get there, but like
Yeah.
everything, you know what I mean?
That's what I
like
meant,
everything
like,
was, it was just kind of like,
fall
you know,
into
everything,
place, like you said.
everything lined up at the right time.
Yeah, which is really good because I feel like that comes true a lot of times for you, Brandon. From what I hear, like a lot of times it just lines up really well. Like when you said you were going to George Mason, I guess that kind of falls up to you. You going to grad school?
Georgetown.
Georgetown. Sorry, I was thinking about another college. Georgetown, which is in DC. It worked out for you originally because you said your brother was originally moving up there too with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that hasn't happened yet. I'm still trying to convince him I'm still trying to get him up here. he said he's been thinking about it, so
Oh my
hopefully it'll
gosh.
happen.
So tell us about Georgetown. Like, I actually don't know much about Georgetown because it was only what, a year and a half you said that you were there.
You
So
know what's wild? You know what's wild is I didn't even really get to experience Georgetown for a year and a half
that's what I'm saying.
because
I remember because it was during COVID, right?
yeah, I graduated 2020 from Wake. I started Georgetown basically right after, um, and my whole first year was all online, so I just stayed in Raleigh.
Yeah, I remember.
Um, and so I didn't get to really experience Georgetown but for like a semester. And even during that, I was working, and my classes were at night, so I didn't even really get to be on campus like that.
So it sounds like you didn't really get to enjoy Georgetown as much as you could because you said you were only there
No,
for a semester, right?
yeah, I was only on campus for a semester,
Dang.
which is kind of wild to think that I graduated and only spent a semester on a campus.
Well, so what did you go to grad school for? It's like continuing mathematical business or?
No, it was this one was just math and statistics.
Okay.
hmm
Okay.
So it was higher level math and statistics.
Hmm.
Crazy. Still crazy.
Yeah, I love math, but not as much as you do.
I think I'm still thinking about going back and getting a PhD like the years down the line, but I'm
We
thinking
just
about
pulled
it.
you out, Brandon. Don't go back in, my boy. I will say one thing though. I don't know. Were you continuing that? I don't know. Okay, so one thing that I do want to pick your brain on, because even though we've kind of been pat you on the back this entire podcast, but that's a good thing because you're a good guy and you're very smart. But
His line.
the one thing I'm lying.
His line.
Oh yeah. Hit him. Hub him. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But one thing I do want to get your opinion on, or this could be a quick PSA to anybody out there, such as myself. But is there anything that you can speak to towards kind of where you got motivation from? Because I know a lot of math and statistics and stuff like that can be really not bogged down, but it can be really difficult and stressful mentally.
hmm
Can you speak at all to where you found motivation? Because there are days, admittedly, and I'm sure other people have this problem too, because college comes with a lot of freedoms, but also a lot of responsibilities pertaining back to the subject that we're talking about. But speak at all to where you found any motivation, especially in a field that requires so much attention and so much time into the work the work that goes into it.
I guess my motivation comes from knowing what I'm capable of and knowing what I'm like was doing at the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I feel like I knew I was capable of doing more, but I needed to learn more to do it. So it was a matter of taking it step by step, and um, I don't know. I guess just breaking things down, knowing that this is a stepping stone to get to where you want to be.
Because you and I, Thomas, talked about, I think on the first episode, about I brought up this whole idea of putting the hard work now so that later on in life it doesn't have to be as hard because you already did all of that to
Exactly,
get to this
it's
point.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
that sounded like what you were talking about, but that's kind of what I wanted to get from you, because that sounds like the kind of person you are anyways. Just put in all the hard work now. There'll still be hard work down the road, but because you've already gone through a lot of hard work, it's just going to seem easy
That
to
you're
you.
prepared for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Brandon, like I've
It's all
always
about
known Brandon as
preparation.
like a person that planned ahead in a lot of times. So like every time I've always seen Brandon, for the most part, he has a plan for like what he's doing for the next year or something like that. And I don't know why this sticks in my head, but this one time, this is when I believe you were either a junior or sophomore in your undergrad, and you had an internship at a job.
hmm Yep, the one in Raleigh.
Yep, the one in Raleigh, and you were getting paid
Yep,
what, like 14 an hour at the job or something like that.
something like that.
I
Yep.
remember you getting paid good, and I remember this because I was thinking at that point because I was what, like a junior or senior in high school around then.
Yep.
Around then, I remember I was like, dang, do I have to have an internship like at college as I'm like a junior, sophomore, junior in college? And I was just thinking that I was like, man, Brandon's doing so much stuff, because now that I'm sitting here, I've never taken an internship in my college, like undergrad, which probably is not good, honestly. But we're not gonna talk about that.
No, that's okay. Like that's something that I've had a hard time. Uh, dealing with is recognizing that the path that you're on isn't anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? People
Yeah.
take different steps at different times, and
Yeah.
like you just have to be okay with that.
So
That's
like,
something that's been really kind of hard recently, actually.
yeah. So let me ask you this: how are you like able to deal with all this mentally? Because I know, just like Cole was talking about, this has a lot of responsibilities, but these responsibilities also come with a toll a lot of these times. So like, especially with you being in DC, and like I know you've been in DC for like a couple of years now, maybe like what, 2-3 years now.
I
About.
just hit a year. August was a
Oh,
year.
dang! I thought you were there for longer.
He's rounding.
August was a year.
I guess a year, but and I don't know how many friends you have up there. I don't know if you have like a lot of friends.
What a that's such
I'm
a.
not-
I know you didn't mean it that way, but it's like, dang, you must be lonely.
No, no, that's not what I meant. I meant like I don't know how many close friends you have a lot up there, in DC, because I know basically besides, I mean, you don't even have family up there either is a thing, because originally you were, but
So that's actually funny that you say that. I didn't know I had family up here. I have some cousins that are up here.
see,
It's an odd place to
something
find
new.
family.
Did you just meet them at the grocery store and you're like, yo, my last name's Freeman? I'm like, yo, that's my cousin's last name.
My on my mom's side, my cousin is up here. I didn't know he lived up here before I came up here,
Mhm.
and my mom didn't. Well, and she had told me, and I guess I just forgot. But yeah. So I've got a couple of different cousins up here. I've got 2 cousins up here, I think.
Well, but how close are you with them?
No, not super close.
Yeah, so I guess this goes into my point. Like, once again, I don't know how many like close friends you have up there or not, or like how close you are to your friends up there. But basically, like when it comes to being in a state, especially like a little state where like you're kind of like a couple hundred miles from your family or like your close friends, how are you able to deal with like the mental toll you have of like especially your job or like things that are going on with your life? Like I know you can always call me or Brandon, but like like there's a lot of times I'm busy that sometimes I can't talk, or like we don't even really talk that much anymore. I think this is the first I've talked to you since like
It's been a while. Yeah.
maybe like a month or two ago was the last time I think we talked.
Yeah.
So like how are you able to deal with like the mental toll of things, or like the mental, like how to keep you up your mental health?
Finding a rugby team was very helpful.
Oh, I bet.
That's what I'm gonna say to that.
Yeah.
Because it gave me people that I could just talk to, people that I had something in common with, and now I feel like it's become a support system.
That's good, honestly.
And then it also helps that like one of my roommates from my senior year, he lives up here, so he's not too far. So me and him will hang out pretty often.
Oh, that's good.
So I've got some people up here, so that's been good. But I call my family pretty much every day. Like I talk to my parents every day for sure, and my middle brother, I talk to him every day. But yeah, it's just I talking on the phone helps too.
I think one thing that I've noticed is that because you're actually a pretty good person to talk with about this kind of stuff, Brandon, but also you too, because you can relate to it to a certain extent. But because also I'm taking a class right now on sports and sociology and kind of the effect that it has on people in general, more so youth, and this relates to you guys, but I think, and speak to this at all, either of you guys, about taking Taekwondo as a kid or a young adult and it kind of helping you in 2 different phases as it pertains to Brandon right now, 2 different phases of your life. Because when you were younger, going into high school and kind of college, that helped you and gave you somewhat of an outlet and a distraction from some of the stuff that you were going on and kind of becoming an adult. And I think now that Thomas proposed that question about how do you deal with all this responsibility and stuff that you have going on with your major and being away from your family and stuff like that, you found comfort in another sport, in rugby. So in a different step of your life of not so much turning into an adult, but continuing to be an adult with the added responsibility that you have now, like I said, being away from your family, work, other kinds of things that you're doing. I think that's really interesting, especially since I'm learning about it, just kind of the impact rather that sports has in a positive light on people kind of not just finding themselves, but finding a way to distract themselves from some of the more daunting tasks of everyday life.
See, that's crazy. I had never thought about it like that.
That's what I'm
Welcome
here
to
for.
That's
There we go.
wild.
perspective. It's a great perspective, right? Um, yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah, period. That's it.
I actually wanted to shift gears to like our last topic because we are also kind of coming close to our time, just a little bit. We still have a good time, but I know you have to get somewhere around like 8:20. So
Yeah.
our last topic, I kind of want to talk to you about. It's because I actually like never hear you talk about this, Brandon, and you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. Um, but is like the perspective on like relationships because Cole is going through some stuff. I'm going through some stuff. A lot of people are going through some stuff with just like relationships, and this could like literally pertain either like romantic relationship, friendship relationship, school relationship, work relationship, like any type of relationship. And I wanted to get your perspective on how you feel about responsibility in relationships. So like a good example for me, like there's times where like let's say me and a friend, like we haven't talked for a while, and like I feel like I have the responsibility, or like I feel responsible for that reason where we haven't talked in a long time because I haven't been able to reach out or talked in a while. Or like if
Hmm.
it's like a romantic relationship, I feel responsible. I feel like the person that was the one that like drove us between something, or like that's the reason why we ended. Or I feel responsible for doing something wrong in the relationship. Like, what is your perspective on that? Like, how do you feel about the idea of responsibility in relationships?
I would say like, I guess to me when you first started talking, you said responsibility in relationships, and the first thing that came to mind was like communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first thing I associate with those two words is like making sure that you're being open and communicating. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what I feel like that's what leads to the downfall of so many relationships is like somebody saying something and either
Like a
not meaning what they said,
miscommunication. Yeah.
right? Either not meaning what they said or um or having a miscommunication, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what leads to the biggest problems
Mm-hmm.
in relationships. And so I think it's not that's like a two-way street, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
responsibility of both sides. Um, so I think I think that's the most important to me, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you think like okay, so we're following the same trend of like romantic relationships. Do you think like the girlfriend or the boyfriend has a responsibility in the relationship? Like for example, as a boyfriend, we have the responsibility to, I don't know, buy her things all the time or stuff like that. Do you think like that's like normal that we should have that like a responsibility within the relationship, or should we just live
I
how we
mean,
are?
again, I think that's if you're gonna do that, I think it should be like a two-way thing. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of I don't know. I think it's if I shouldn't be expected to do something
Mm-hmm.
that you're not gonna do. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I think, if I may
Go
interject, I know
ahead.
you're asking Brandon this
Yeah, go
question.
ahead.
Just my 2 cents on it. I think too, as I've gotten older and the more that I learn about it, because I say we, but at least when I was younger, the perception of it was more the guy buys flowers all the time,
Mm-hmm.
buys a lot of stuff, does this, and this. And because we're guys, we don't hear a whole lot about the girls' side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hmm.
looking at it when I was younger, it was a lot more like the guy has to cover bases A, B, and C. And now I think as I've gotten older, you learn a lot more too about it's very it's a very symbiotic relationship. Like you
Mm-hmm.
guys both have to put in an
You
equal
both have
or
to put in the effort.
you both
Yeah.
have to put in an equal or pretty close to it amount of effort, because if you don't, then it's not going to work. Because thinking about it now, that whole thing, if the guy or the girl, depending on who your partner is and what your connection is with each other,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if one or the other puts in too much work or too much of the responsibility, that's kind of what causes it to crumble a little bit. So I know that you asking Brandon that question might have sparked a different response, but
Yeah.
just growing up, how I've learned about it versus how now I understand it to be, I think it'd be cool to throw that in there too,
Mhm.
along with this discussion.
So when I say I shouldn't be expected to do something that you're not gonna do, I don't mean, like doing it all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a constant thing. But if I'm going to do something for you, you know what I mean? It's, if it's a relationship, there should be that return. Like that's part of our relationship, is that give and take, and being able to look out for each other and being there for each other.
Okay, so that's funny that you bring it up. So in one of my classes, we're actually talking about it's called, I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's called like either, I think it's like good neighbor morality is what it's called, something along those lines in one of my classes. So like we live in a world of I believe it's called the consumer. What is it? Buying a consumer, like being the consumer and being the buyer or being the seller.
The
Seller
producer?
Producer and consumer. That's what it is. I couldn't get those words out.
Alley-oop.
So we live in a world with the producer and consumer, but there's also another society where they live by the good neighbor morality. So producer and consumer, you have a product, I buy it, that's it. I buy it with like actual money. The good neighbor morality is the idea of, if I need something, you give it to me and I owe you something later, because I know you're going to, like, you know that I'm going to help you down the road. Like, and I don't actually like owe you some actual physical item or like a capitalist type thing. You just know that I'm going to give it to you.
Right.
How does that apply to like relationships? Because for what you're saying, it sounds like
Well, also, before you go, obviously I want you to finish what you're talking about. Because it's kind of going on what I was talking about. It's also very much dependent on who you're going on this journey with. Because like I was saying, it could, for the old school, what I was thinking of when I was growing up, that could totally work for people. And I'm not going to take that away from anybody. Yeah. But just looking at it now, like everything that I've learned and other things that other people tell me about it, it seems to be more give and take kind of thing, kind of what you were going on it. But it can definitely work. It just obviously depends on who you're doing it with.
So. So what do you think, Brandon? Because like, just like Cole was saying, do you think a relationship be like a producer consumer type of relationship, or should it be like a good neighbor morality relationship? What do you think?
More of a good neighbor morality relationship for sure. Like, if it's very transactional, it's very like, I feel like it feels like a surface level relationship, you know?
Do you think that applies? Okay, so going back from not a romantic relationship, but do you think some I guess, friendship relationships are transactional?
I think so, yeah. That's for sure.
That's definitely me and Ethan. No, I'm just joking.
Ethan catching strays left and right, bro.
Well, Ethan, every time you asking me like, yo, can you buy me food? I'm like, bro, can you not afford the Happy Meal McDonald's?
I think though too. Damn. I think though too, you kind of look at it in the sense of, obviously I'm not taking away from anything that you're saying, but I look at it too a lot because to a certain extent you and I have this dynamic where, like, transaction wise, if I give you something or if you give me something, we might not be able to pay it back immediately or later on down the road, but you pay for it in other ways.
Yeah, I agree.
So you might
but that's more comes to back to the example that Thomas brought up.
The good neighbor is what you're talking about?
Yes, yeah, because like he's going to help you out with something down the line.
I mean, there definitely are relationships where there's like one person doing something, and in the past, like years and years ago, I've definitely been a part of those. But there's also, and like I said, it all revolves around who the person is, because it's very much.
Sometimes those relationships are hard to recognize when you're in them.
I mean, yeah, that's very true. Sometimes it takes time. Some people longer than others, but it's all just dependent on how you value the gift to be returned, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Dang.
But yeah.
Well,
this man's perplexed. He doesn't know what to say.
Yeah, I just like this. It's not mind blown, but it gives us a lot to think about, because like what I wasn't looking for anything, but like where I was thinking this conversation was going to lead to was kind of leading into like the different responsibilities when it comes to different, like, I guess, relationships, and how that may be seen differently. Obviously, like responsibility between like friendships, like between me and Cole, I have different responsibilities compared to me and Brandon. Like, whenever I'm with me and Cole, I guess my quote unquote responsibility is just to, just have fun, do whatever we need to do. I still owe him money, so I gotta pay him back. Those like types of little things. While like my responsibility with Brandon would be like, oh, I feel like I have to catch up with him a lot since I haven't talked to him in a while. Do like are some of our old things like? Do you think responsibility when it comes to like I guess friendships is different with like the friends that you're like with or surrounded by? Because like
See, that's wild. That's wild that you say that actually, because like you got me thinking about like responsibility in terms of how you act in different friendship groups.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Because like up here, a lot of times at rugby, I tend to be pretty quiet and not as vocal. But like when I'm with y'all, I talk all the time.
See, and like
Yeah.
I would never have known
It's
that
wild.
unless you said that, because like
Yeah.
I've known you as like a very talkative-ish person, and I only say that because once again I've known you for years and I talk to you like all the time and we always catch up for the most part. And you have always like
And it's-
something new.
And it's wild because it's not like that I like don't want to talk to them. It's just that I don't know. That's just kind of how I fell into that group.
And yeah, and do you think like once again like different friend groups like different responsibilities? Like, do you think you're like I guess the best example would be kind of like I guess like your friends at work or like I guess your coworkers. I mean, I don't know if you look at them as friends or not, but your friends at work versus like your friends back in high school, like that you see sometimes. Like, do you think those are similar relationships or very different?
Very different. Very, very different. I don't know. Just because a lot of that comes from how well you know the person, you know? Because at work, I feel like you don't talk about your personal stuff as nearly as much as you do with like the people you've grown up with, you know?
Ooh, that's so interesting. Okay, this is the last topic, and then I don't know if we have like any more much time, but it actually brings me up the idea of, and this kind of like it kind of stays with the idea of responsibility, but like low key kind of strays. What do you think allows, I guess, people to break the boundaries of the environment you're in to get like people to know each other a little bit more? So like a good example you just said was the people that you would talk at work, like your coworkers or friends. You just said you don't really talk with like your personal life to those coworkers. What do you think? What interaction or like what triggers to like break those boundaries where you actually start beginning to talk about your personal life? Like I know Cole, he has friends at his work that he's like become really close with, and that's a work setting, and like those are like now some of his close friends that he talks about personal things with. Like, what do you think? What I guess variable is applied to this in order to help break those boundaries?
I've got two variables for
Okay.
you. One of them is time. Sometimes it just takes time and being around the person and getting to know them and getting a little more comfortable around them, you know? But the second one is it takes somebody to reach out, like somebody to take that first step, you know? And like
okay.
since I've switched jobs, that was one thing I was like, I waited too long to really like hang out with my coworkers at the last job. So I was like, you know what? I'm hanging out with some people. Let me go. It's for my friend's birthday. I was like, let me see if my friend cares if I bring my coworker. And he didn't. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's go ahead and reach out and try and break through so we can start talking a little bit more and get past that surface level stuff.
Okay. Dang, that's super interesting.
Those are some good answers. I like that, Brandon. I'm still here, by the way.
Yeah, you're
I'm
here.
just in the corner.
You want to put your 2 cents in about that?
No, I mean, I think obviously we've talked about this. Part of the reason we wanted to bring him on here is because I would think that he would have some pretty good insight into this kind of stuff. Because obviously, if Thomas doesn't know about it, I sure don't know about this stuff. So it's pretty cool to actually hear your thoughts about this stuff. But it was just a joke. I'm still here. I was just sitting here. I part of the cool thing about having guests on here is I talk a lot, and I know that I do, but I want you guys to really just steal the show and talk about everything. Obviously, Thomas and I can introduce the topics, but
Yeah.
also, but yeah, those are some pretty good answers. I like that. That was nice. All right. Thomas,
Thanks, Cole.
you want to, I mean, unless you had any further line of questioning, do you want to, you took the captain's chair on this one. You want to round us out on this
I
episode?
did. Well, first, number one, I want to say thanks for being on the podcast, Brandon. I know you wanted to be
Yeah,
on
of
it,
course.
and I do appreciate
Of
you being
course.
on this podcast because, you always have some insightful, I guess, perspectives on things that we talk about. And I always do
If
look
you
to
want me
you.
back, let me know.
Oh, for sure. Honestly, I always see like your wisdom. Like whenever I think about, I guess thinking about things, sometimes I ask me like, what would Brandon do? I guess in some cases, I only say that because honestly, you're very wise for being close to 25. Honestly, like what you're 24, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
Which is so weird to me because you turned
It's weird to me
25
too,
when I
Thomas.
turned 22. Dang, we're
Yep.
old because I've known you since I was like.
We've known each other forever, man.
Yeah, because when you were 17, I was 14. You were driving my ass home, bro. Like that's so weird. Sorry for I forgot.
It's fine.
See, and I've held on. I've done a good job.
Sorry, sometimes it slips.
The host, the ones that break. Imagine that.
We can edit this if we need to. No, we won't.
We not editing this.
We don't edit this. It's too long. But yeah, I appreciate you being on here, Brandon. I'm glad you were able to. At least I hope you did enjoy these conversations
did.
we had.
Yeah.
I've learned some things about you that I actually should have learned years ago, but I guess I didn't.
You know what? He had a dream one night, and he said, "You know what? There's going to be a podcast one day, and I'm going to have to tell Thomas of the podcast." So
I
that's
appreciate.
definitely what happened. Nobody fact checked it. That's absolutely a point
How
in our
would he
history.
fact check that? Wikipedia.com
Shut
slash
up. I don't know.
Brandon
I was
Freeman.
I was trying to be anecdotal. I don't know.
But yeah, I hope you also enjoyed the topics that we talked about. Very insightful once again. But do you have any last words for us?
Just thanks. Thanks for talking to me. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it was good.
Do you want to give?
I haven't had like a conversation like this in a while, so it was needed.
Oh, very much sure. We have this every week. So if you want, like, we also like record journals. So if you ever want to like just rant or talk about something, we can like record it and talk it in like this kind of manner. But like you can be more open to say because it doesn't get published. So.
Yeah.
Damn, way to out us like that. Dude. People right now are sitting at home like, what have they said about me?
No, it's not. We don't say it about anything. It's just things on our minds that's kind of like venting.
It's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
I look at it that way,
Just
and
to
I
let
hope,
it out.
Yeah.
I hope other people look at it the same way.
So if you ever want to do that, like just call us or text us like, hey, I need a podcast rant, and we're like, we got it all set up,
Got
we're
you.
ready. So do you have any like last motivational words for the people that are listening? It could be like anything related to responsibilities, to relationships, literally anything. Any last motivational words?
I guess I would say just take everything step by step, Don't get too caught up in looking too far ahead. Takes baby steps to get to where you want to be.
Dang, those are good words, man.
He actually, without even trying, said one earlier that I can remind you of because it was just, when you're as smart as he is, this just comes naturally.
Yeah.
But you said something along the lines of your journey isn't everybody else's.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important message. So we can round it back to that by just saying, well, actually, you know what, Brandon? Take the lead on this one. I'm not going to steal your thunder from me.
No, that's exactly it. Like,
All right.
you know what I
never
mean?
mind.
Because I think a lot of people get caught up looking at where other people are and comparing themselves. And, it's just, if you're doing that, you're not going to be happy. That's how I feel about it.
Dang, Brandon.
Well said, brother.
All right. Well, once again, thank you, Brandon, for being on the podcast. I hope you guys all enjoyed listening to our podcast, episode number 4. And
Forced. Just because we're talking to a Spanish major. How did he do, Brandon?
Numero
Right-
cuatro.
There you go.
Brandon, I might need to call you because I'm also taking Spanish 2 right now, which is fine. But
Yeah, let me know.
all right, got you. But thanks again for listening to the podcast episode number 4. Once again, we always appreciate you guys listening. I'm Thomas, and this is our co-host.
Oh, word? I got delegated to the co-host seat now? Okay. Well, I'm Cole.
And this is our special guest, Brandon. And we will see
guys.
you next week.
See you later. Peace.